Great having everybody here. We're here today to talk about teens and young adults taking charge, taking ownership of their learning, and becoming what we call self-directed. We've talked on this podcast series before about how we as adults practice being self-directed, really just exercising our freedom and making decisions about what to learn, what to do, and it's a fascinating topic because especially if teens have a lot of time on their hands, maybe you're homeschooled, or even if you're on summer break, or after school if you're in a traditional school, and you have time, you have ability to learn and choose things to do. It's like, what could you do with your time? I mean, I think it would be very, a lot of adults would say, oh, well, make good use of your time, invest in yourself, do something good with your time in your life. And one, there's definitely something to that, but we have some thoughts about what self-direction really means versus maybe kind of just doing whatever you want. And I wonder, Elizabeth, if you could open us up with what does self-directed learning really mean to you?
Yeah, kind of as I went through this with my kids and explored a lot of different kind of like homeschooling philosophies, there was a lot of people that kind of had different ideas about that. And we'll probably address this deeper in another video, but some ideas of people who wanted to be their kids to be self-directed, their idea was that they could give them a curriculum or, whether that was like books and workbooks, or they could put them onto an online curriculum, which is more popular these days. And those kids could essentially, being self directed in that terminology, would just mean that those students can complete that curriculum without a lot of direction or help from their parents. So, in other words, they're going to be like motivated to do that. They're going to do the work and they maybe don't need a lot of help, and their parent doesn't need to sit there and be like telling them to do it all day long. Um, to me, that's not really what I would define as self-directed. Then there was kind of like the extreme opposite end of the spectrum with, what we might call radical unschooling, where parents are like, well, just, kids should just do whatever they want to do all day long. And I'd say what we're talking about here is kind of like what Jimmy said, that it's about kids taking charge of their education. So, um, while we do believe that that should be highly directed by their interests and what they like to be doing, it still should have perhaps some intentionality, um, some thought process to what they're doing and why they're doing it, instead of just sort of like this seems fun right now and then you get bored and this is the next thing. And so, at the Care Society, we really focus on project based learning, which is a framework that helps kids to kind of find something that they're interested and excited about and then do something intentional with it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Elizabeth. And we've seen many wonderful projects coming from our students and of ourselves, because we don't just like help students. We ourselves are very creative people. We care about each other. This entire organization is a giant set of collaborative projects, right? Like launching a business is an example of a creative project. One of our students really loves anatomy, and not only has that motivation to go find books and articles and videos to learn all about the body, but turning it into these amazing products of art, 3D models of body parts, having discussions about these things. And as well, I think that what you said is really profound, where it's based on the interests of the student. I think there are a couple of ways to maybe I mean, there are really two types of interests, right? So there are your personal interests and your situational interests, or these things that you just really want to do out of your own volition. You just love it so much. Like for me, I have personal interest in music. I love playing the guitar. I've got my piano here. I love to sing with my family. I was in choir. I did musical theater. I would just want to do those things. It's also been valuable for me. I've tutored in guitar. I taught a guitar course, so I actually turned my interest into something that produces income, which is really cool. And then the situational interest as well is really something where it's like, oh, I can see the value in that, and this would be good for me because I could see how it could apply here. So let me kind of like explore that or discover it. Maybe just spend a little bit of time. You were mentioning like intentionality. And I think that level of scholarship is really cool for people to think about too. Especially, if there's a teen who's about ready to graduate and they're like, what could I be doing with my life in terms of a career, in terms of an income, in terms of what I might want to study in college, and kind of selecting something new to get exposed to, and maybe doing something with it, like creating a project or creating a product. I think it's a really neat thing. Um, I think too, uh, it comes from almost like this mindset that young people like really can do real things in the real world. I think there are a lot of young people who have always been told what to do and have never really been like encouraged to like really explore themselves and to dig deeper and to see like how far they can go with an idea or dream big. Like we have a student who's writing a children's book about Greek gods, and really wants to publish an in-print version versus an electronic version so that kids can actually see the pages and everything, which is like what an act of compassion to like be empathizing and thinking about how the product is really going to come across. And we're like, yeah, you can do it. Like you're like 9 years old, but you don't have to wait till you're 29 to publish something. It's like, okay. And so, yeah, that really kind of the sky's the limit. And I wonder, Aquinas, Tara, and Jed, um, what what's something you can add to the conversation about young people really taking charge or ownership of their education rather than kind of just doing anything?
Well, I think it's again talking about the failure of like over dependency on the structured learning. So we're teaching kids basically a kind of catch-all approach where the main education model is recite for an exam, then forget, and we're teaching them to recite, not to do. So we would say school is meant to be preparing kids for the real world, but they're not practicing anything real world in school. So I think that's where we're trying to kind of bridge in, like you said, oh, maybe they want to get into publishing and kind of exploring Greek myths. Okay, well, what's a real world application that you could do for that? Oh, you could literally try and publish your own book and kind of like even if it doesn't manifest totally, just the experience now you know more about the real world and how that system works than if you were just reciting it for an exam and then moving on. So I think that kind of how is it put into action focus as opposed to can you just list the factoids to me in like a basic kind of multi-choice exam or something like that is going to be a lot more passive, building passive skills through that exploring that kind of model will be a lot more beneficial to their real life situation after school than we presently have with traditional education.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jed.
I was going to add about the kind of motivational aspect of the teens of today, whether they be in a homeschool setting, a public school setting, and I want to add, obviously, psychological motivations can be affected in those different types of settings, but that they need to realize, especially as they're teenagers, 14, 15, and older especially, like you're soon going to be out in the world. And so like, how are you going to make it? Like you need to kind of get into the habit of being purposeful with your actions, with your work. Elizabeth, I believe, said earlier about having intention. So whatever's kind of chaos, apathy, boredom's going on around you, like you're responsible for you. And we have a community that can help lift you up, can encourage you, can maybe connect you with other people that would have those similar interests. But what I really want to get drive home to any of the teens that might be watching this is like, you need to start acting, like start doing with, I'm not saying you already have to know what your career is right now, but you need to start going after and getting what you want. And also, you got to be really honest with yourself. I'm very sympathetic to a lot of the teens that seem to gravitate, let's say, towards gaming and so forth. And I'm like, it's kind of understandable. You're often always controlled. You might be using that as an outlet or a place where you can finally express yourself. But you also have to be honest. Are you just using this as a tune-out moment to kind of just veg? And don't get me wrong, adults veg sometimes. They'll watch their sitcoms for 30 minutes or an hour or two, but like, you don't want your life to just be vegging and passive. Like, you have to take action, go after what you want. And we're here to help you with that.
It makes me think, just over the weekend, a couple of like teens and like college age students YouTube videos were popping up on my feed, and there were like three that were all talking about this phenomenon of like looking around and everyone and their friends are just like watching short videos on YouTube or on TikTok, and they're like looking around. It's like, is this what we want for like ourselves and our friends? Like, do we want to just be like scrolling like mindlessly? And so these channels were like dedicated to like documenting their like self-improvement, and like one of them was on like a fitness journey, another one was learning skills and talking about learning an instrument, and then another I think someone was doing like woodworking, or was learning about philosophy or like a different religion for the first time, and they were posting these like reflections just to share with the world, like, look, I would rather be like creating something. I would rather be like having a record even of my life, so that like my life doesn't pass me by, and like maybe this will help one person. And all of these three channels that I had seen had like 50 views or less, or like the videos did. And yet they were so committed to creating something that might help just one person, and give themselves that accountability and motivation to like express themselves. Like one of the content creators made a video. It was like 1 a.m. He couldn't sleep, but he was like journaling, and he was like, I just had to make a video to like capture this moment on here, and like maybe like give someone like a little bit of motivation. And I just thought that was really cool, that someone even has the metacognition to say, look, I need to start taking charge and ownership of my life. Yes, I'm 17 years old, but the people around me, I see where some of our world is headed, and I want to make a change. I want to make a change in my life, and maybe inspire people to do the same. And even just those little acts, it doesn't have to be write a book, it doesn't have to be start a business, but a little act of creativity and that inspiration, it's like this ripple in a pond that I think can have a huge effect.
And another thing I want to add to what you're saying there, Jimmy, and hopefully, well, I don't know if teens fully grasp this. I'm sure some do, but like, as you go and accomplish things and set goals for yourself that you meet, like that forms a basis of a healthier self-esteem. So, if you're feeling like you're despondent, you want to veg out, you want to escape, like, it's easy to just kind of stay in that spiral. But even if you set like little achievable goals, what you might, and which is fine, call like baby steps towards something, like you feel something about accomplishment. I remember in one of the projects I believe Jed had done about exercising and working out, and I've been working out for a long time. And as you get stronger, and as you maybe add on a rep or do a little bit more weight, or if you're a runner and you shorten your time or increase your distance, like you start to feel good because you have evidence I can accomplish. So again, with our broad point here, I believe with the teens on the self-directed learning is to be intentional, purposeful. And I appreciate you saying, it doesn't have to be this big write a book at the end, or a TikTok video that has all these views, but get started with doing with intentionality. And like, you might be surprised what you are able to create and accomplish. And again, I really want to emphasize, we are of a community here at CARE. Like, we're going to cheer you on. We're going to connect you with people. We're going to talk about those things that you might be passionate about, but take action, and we will be supportive of that action.
Yeah. Even with, thinking about like the video games and kind of what I've observed, and I know Tara, you've talked about some of this too, but it's just the kids these days have so little like freedom in their lives to do real things, and not just freedom but also support, that video games kind of give them. It's just a replacement for doing these things, in the sense that, and like, I'm not against people playing video games, that's fine, but it gives them that sense, that there's problem solving, and there's puzzles to solve, and there's things that they can accomplish, and it kind of, in the absence of their like ability to do real things in the real world, this gives them that sense of doing that. And in my experience, kids really do want to do real things in the real world. And so when given the actual opportunity and support, they will often choose that over video games, or at least in equal measure. Sure, everybody does want to kind of just chill out sometimes. But also, I have seen things like video games really be a jumping off place for doing very interesting things in the real world as well. But it also, like I said, it takes kind of giving kids the freedom, the time, the support to do these things. And even a lot of things like that we do fuss about kids doing, like scrolling on social media. I remember for my youngest daughter, she liked Instagram, and she'd watch people. She was into like cleaning videos, cooking videos. She got into like roller skating through this, but because she also had the time and support, she would she would see other people doing these things and then actually go and do them herself. Whereas I see a lot of kids being put in places where they're seeing all this and just never really having the opportunity to do anything with what they're being exposed to, So like we talk about, we do want kids to have exposure. We want to see that. We want them to see and know about all the things that there are to do in the world. Well, honestly, scrolling short videos on social media does show you a lot of things that there are to do in the world. But a lot of kids just don't, like I said, whether it's time or it's support or it's resources, they just don't have a way to like kind of step out and actually do this. And I think a lot of kids do want to do that. And that's part of, my passion for this community, is to provide a place where we can be like, hey, did you see something interesting, that somebody else did and you want to do it too? Like, let's do that. Just, give them an opportunity.
Well, do you think it's a problem that they're separating these type of activities? So we could say, oh, there's education, there's video games, there's chilling out, as opposed to if we helped kids realize the mindset of no matter what you do, you're training something. So I'd just be aware of, like, if you're just going through Instagram Reels, you're training a dependency on stimulation, and that's going to make focusing harder. If you're just going on video games, you're training to be good at video games, but there's not a lot of, like, maybe there is some skills, but, be aware of the skills you're attending. Where if you're practicing maybe putting a video out there to share an interest, like Jimmy was saying, maybe it doesn't get 50 views, but you've trained your confidence, you've trained video editing, you've trained a lot more skills on that. So I think it would be helpful to teach kids to focus on, rather than separating all these types of things into a different category, I guess, depending on how they want to spend their day. It's like, okay, what are you trying to train in this moment? What kind of skill, what kind of habit or poor habit, I guess, and just being aware that everything is training some sort of like, what would you call it? Brain pathway or muscle, I guess. And so just be attentive of what you're learning and when, rather than thinking, learning is just something you do in school. You're constantly learning, and be aware what you're learning and when, I think would be a helpful kind of mindset to encourage as well.
Yeah. And it can, like, I think it's good to like inform and educate kids on this, but it can also help to, to kind of guide them of like, okay, what are, if you're scrolling videos or whatever on social media, how can you, instead of just be thinking about, oh, I'm doing this because it feels good, because I'm kind of doing this to just sedate my brain, but can I actually be looking for inspiration there? Like if I've got 15 minutes and I do kind of want to chill, can I be trying to, like, in there, can I say, oh, is there an idea that then tomorrow I'm going to take off and I'm going to do something? Or like when it comes to video games, I've seen a lot of kids be really inspired by all kinds of things in there, whether it's the music, it's the artwork, it's the storytelling, it's the just like the actual digital creation of the thing, and so a lot of kids can kind of experience that and go beyond just, oh, this like was a fun game to play, which is fine in itself, but then also be like, wow, somebody created that. How did they do that? Can I do that? And so yeah, kind of just putting in there that, whatever it is that we're doing, and I don't think that we should separate all of those things that much, like you said, Jed, like just to recognize, I think I kind of wrote something around this once, the idea that learning is happening no matter what you are doing. We can't say, oh, this activity is learning and that activity is not learning. Like, the act of whatever you're doing is forming neuron pathways in your brain. It just is. So you're learning something good, you're learning something bad, you're training a habit, whatever it is. But yeah, learning is happening, and I think it's pretty detrimental to tell kids that you have to do this thing to be learning or that thing to be learning.
I think that this kind of knowledge would really have helped me when I was like late teenage and growing out of it, because what I've spoken about a lot is how I kind of so when I was like young teenage, my parents kind of went an unofficial unschooling route, and were kind of just like, Tara, you're a pretty creative kid, go and do what you want to do. So I found video games and I had a favorite video game, Skyrim, and I wanted to write stories for the characters within that game. So I kind of found the online modding community with that, and found like groups of people who were making their own content for it, and made honestly hundreds of friends all around the world from that. And I went on doing that until I was about 19 or 20. And what I haven't spoken about is that when I did hit 20, I stopped making those mods and writing and talking to those friends, because I felt like I was suffering through a significant amount of depression and burnout and not feeling like I was developing any skills or just doing anything productive with my life as a homeschooler. And I think if I'd had the knowledge back then of actually when you're doing that writing, it is teaching you the skills of not only writing, but being productive and helping others and communicating with other people and learning how to meet the needs of other people and can't just be a productive person. And I feel like if I had known that back then, I might not have stopped doing it.
So you feel like maybe the things that you were doing, like the world was kind of telling you those weren't useful or productive or something that would get you anywhere in life.
Yeah.
And so you begin to feel bad about what you were doing and the way you were spending your time, although now you can look back and see, oh, those were actually pretty cool things you were doing.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like, if I hadn't have done all of that online networking when I was a teenager, I probably wouldn't have found you guys and forced Jed to join as well.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Well, and as well, for any parents who might look at that activity and be like, oh, well, how could that be valuable? I mean, one, clearly that was an original idea. And part of the value was there were other people who wanted to be involved. So not only that, but you are working on creating a product of your writing. And if we think about in the real world, how does that generate income? Well, publishing a book, stories, those of course like generate income, and organizing people. I mean that which is a little bit more people understand that better now. You know, if you have your online Discord community or your YouTube, there's like a monthly membership for that now. And we know that a lot of our economy is going to become more personalized, and yet we know that we still have this deep need for human connection. I think there are going to be a lot more communities that will be like kind of membership based, and people are going to be more than happy to pay a small amount of money to be a part of a community. Even there are teens that I've worked with that have like a graphic novel writing like little community. I can't remember which platforms host that kind of thing. But yeah, people want to engage with people in their creations. Even social hangouts, there are social clubs. So anytime you're getting people together and people just want to be there, there's going to be income for that in the future. Not that you need to charge, for people's time as a kid, although some people might. I mean, if you want to give it a go, there are content creators that make income, that get sponsorships, that's you can monetize TikTok and YouTube. I don't know how much longer all that's going to be viable with where our AI is going, but yeah, like get out and create something.
I found
Well, I think-
recently that with even with Patreon, like there are a few creators who make like different clothes or hairs or whatever for the game The Sims, and it's like if you subscribe to them on Patreon and give them like $2 every month, then Patreon have developed this new feature where they put you into a group chat with the actual creator of that content. So it's like if you're paying them, you can all chat to each other and have a little community there.
Yeah, there will be a lot of people these days that kind of pay for just that personal access, which is interesting. But yeah, I was just thinking about that concept of story and what is that all involved in. And obviously the things that we might think about that are really obvious, like writing a book or writing a screenplay. But I've kind of realized more and more how story goes so much deeper into all kinds of things. Like, especially my daughter was doing a video production course at community college. And we kind of went into that thinking, okay, this is about like video editing. And we realized through the courses that she did that like even editing a video, even if you're not creating the content, you're still kind of like shaping the story there. Or, you think about things like advertising. You're telling a story about whatever you're advertising. Or, even the idea of a lot of these content creators, even though they're often creating kind of like real content, like they're not making something up, there's still a way to portray that, whether it's their life or whatever they're creating content in as sort of a story. And yeah, I've kind of realized how like important that is. It's such a way to engage with people. And that's why especially even the most successful educators are the people who can put whatever information is into a story that kind of catches people's attention and sticks in your brain. That's just such an important skill.
Well, and go ahead.
No, I was just hearing all that, kind of re-emphasizing again. I believe when Jed talked about the awareness and Elizabeth talking about being intentional, with the main subject being taking charge of your education. I really hope teens understand, like, you know why you're doing something. Are you doing it for, again, to chill out? Okay, but like be self-aware or try to develop more self-awareness. And then as you kind of understand yourself better, then go after and get what you want. take the action. Obviously, I'm assuming the thing that you want is long-term healthy for you, but like start taking the steps and know, especially as an older teen, you're soon going to be out on your own. What do you have to offer? What skills have you developed? What, to be frank, what values do you bring to the table that will resonate, whether friendships, relationships, but ultimately you're going to, probably have to be paying your bills. So kind of keep that in mind as you're progressing through following your interests. And when I work with teens, I teach entrepreneurship. And especially with the artists, I'll often say, you can make the art and it's just for you. It doesn't have to become a business. So you can have those kind of interests that are just for you, but still be aware, okay, this one is for me. I'm not trying to necessarily make an income from it. But at some point, I am going to have to be on my own. And how am I going to make it? Well, if you're 14, 15, you have years to develop valuable skills. So be aware and then be intentional and kind of go after it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier also. The concept of we don't really allow kids to sort of do this sort of thing in an environment where it doesn't matter as much. And so even though, yes, you should be thinking of the future and everything, if you're in middle school and you want to try a bunch of different things and fail miserably at a bunch of different things, that's really, really valuable, because we kind of we force kids into so much structure. And then by the time they're in the real world, they're just terrified to try anything. I mean, it's kind of terrifying. And I want kids to be aware of that, but then also not too aware. Absolutely try some different things and don't worry too hard about it, or sometimes don't think too hard about it. Just like we don't want this to always, we sound like we talk about being intentional and all this stuff, and that is great, but we also want kids to kind of be in a space where they can really, really just riff off of something because it's just super interesting and they want to try this thing. And there's not, that's the point of having kids do this, is because there really isn't a lot writing on this. If you try something for a couple of weeks when you're 12 and you fail, you're still going to learn from that. So I think that's the other thing that's just so important about what we're doing, is to kind of give kids the opportunity to try a lot of cool things in a really low stakes environment, but that adds up to really valuable things when the stakes are higher.
And Elizabeth, I was going to say, I strongly agree with your saying, and ideally, our prospective students would be introduced with this kind of mindset at younger ages, because you're exactly right. You're 10, 11, 12, even 13. You don't necessarily need to be thinking, like I said earlier, maybe for a little bit older, what am I going to do out in the real world? No, at those younger ages, and obviously even more so elementary, that's the time to discover, what are you interested in? What kind of drives you? What gets you going? Oh, you did that for a week or a month or 3 months. Like you said, the stakes are low. You found out it wasn't for you, but then you probably found out something about yourself. But use that time kind of intentionally again to do stuff that will give you some meaning and understanding about yourself. And then you, like I said, you might find that some of those things aren't so interesting. No big deal, because in 2 years, you don't have to live off on your own. You still got many more years to keep exploring and finding out about, basically who you are and what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this story that we're writing, I think, Elizabeth, maybe you and I talked about how we want people to come build this beautiful story with us, because the ideas that we're talking about are so revolutionary and visionary, and yet, when each individual just starts and they're able to have some of those fears taken away by the safety and the trust and the care and support around them, like what we're doing in the Care Society, and especially once people take that risk like that initial leap of like, I've never written about something, or I've never made a video before. I've always been camera shy. And then they realize that the people that they're around in the Care Society are so supportive, and maybe celebrate them, and just put a like on their video and put a little comments, or even taking the time to watch someone's video. Like, you matter. And everyone in the Care Society is committed to these values of curiosity and compassion, so that if we see someone's posting something, we're realizing like, oh, I know what it feels like to like make my first post or share something brand new, and you don't know what people are going to say. And so let's empathize with that person, and give that person the respect and the care that they deserve, because we each matter. And then we have that like reciprocal relationship, and then we just realize that we're all on this amazing journey together. And I think that is the kind of environment that I've thrived on. I mean, being with the co-founders here, I felt more comfortable being vulnerable, opening up, sharing about my fears, my worries, celebrating each other's successes, just being very transparent and honest. And I think this is part of how we heal hearts and mend minds, because when we really inspire each other, and we build off of each other, we also end up learning better, which is kind of like this big synergy concept that we're going after. So come build with us. Come help share your story, build on your story, build this beautiful garden of a story. And I'm very appreciative that everyone's on here talking about taking charge of your learning. So is there anything else we want to add before we end the session? Because I think we've really hit it home.
No, I think we've covered all the main bits. I think just again to summarize that whole kind of, are you learning something to then put it into practice is a big focus. So that whole the doing side of learning, like Elizabeth was saying, the awareness and kind of figuring out what you want in a safe way, and finding a safe way to explore, so you're not leaving it all to like understanding the point is you have the time now to be as explorative and kind of try and fail as you like, because these are the years when you can get the most out of that type of learning. So you should feel a confidence in that kind of approach, where it's like, go nuts, find out what you like, try new things, do whatever you like, and kind of whatever way your kind of passion pulls you, and kind of, oh, you want to explore a new topic randomly for 2 weeks, go for it. As opposed to being so dependent on the structure, you have to all of a sudden figure out your exploration very late in the game. Like, that's definitely a thing I had, where even going to uni, it felt like I'm learning and then, oh, got to go to uni because I'm told I'm supposed to. I have no idea what I want to study because I've never had the chance to explore in traditional education. So you end up picking something that you just feel, I'm best at this, why not? And then the burnout sets in, you have no idea why you're even doing it. So I think allowing kids to explore freely and figure out what they want and why they want it will lead to a lot less cases of like burnout and kind of a sense of lost in the real world kind of dread to set in. So I think avoiding that is a lot easier than people want to admit. It's just giving kids the avenue to explore themselves on that one.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Jed. Well, let's leave it there. Appreciate everyone who's watching this episode, and to the 5 of us here, I guess y'all 4. Oh, look at that, Tara. I like that. I'm assuming that was Tara. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and we'll see y'all next time.